In the summer and autumn of 1941, 137,346 Jews were murdered in Lithuania. Around 40% of the victims were murdered by what was called the Rollkommando Hamann, named after Joachim Hamann, a very small ad hoc killing unit that went from place to place killing all the Jewish people it could find there. The small size of the unit demonstrates how easy it was for the Nazis to murder the Jews. We know the number of people killed thanks to a document called the Jäger Report, which was written by SS-Standartenführer Karl Jäger. In the case of Lithuania, a very clear paper trail was left of the murders by the murderers. Lithuania became independent of Russia as a result of World War I. However, it had major territorial disputes with both Poland and Germany, which made its independence somewhat fragile. The Memel district, formerly part of the German Second Reich, was annexed by Nazi Germany in early 1939 as the last bloodless territorial acquisition by Hitler. In August 1939, the secret protocols of the Ribbentrop Pact assigned all of Lithuania to Nazi Germany. However, Stalin changed his mind and asked if he could exchange part of his share of Poland for Lithuania. Thus, the Soviet Union was able to occupy Lithuania in June 1940. This occupation was to last a little over 1 year. Before the invasion of the Soviet Union, the German leadership had planned a civil administration for the territory to be conquered, which was to be placed under the command of Hinrich Lohse as Reichskommissariat Ostland. According to a draft document entitled The Provisional Guidelines for the Treatment of Jewish Citizens, the Jewish population was to be removed from rural areas and moved to cities where anti-Jewish measures were to be taken. Whereas Hitler might have been expecting a very quick war against the Soviet Union, kick in the front door and the whole edifice will fall down, he is reputed to have said. This information does not seem to have reached those that planned the administration of the newly occupied areas. Indeed, the speed of the conquest of Soviet-occupied Lithuania was much quicker than they expected. Following the rapid occupation of all of Lithuania in June and July 1941, the head of Einsatzgruppe A, Walter Stahlecker, wrote a report on the 6th of August 1941 suggesting that the original plan to deal with the Jews did not take into account new possibilities for settling the Jewish question. He proposed, and now I'm using his words, an almost 100% immediate cleansing of the entire Ostland, the prevention of the reproduction of Jews, and ghettoization as a significant facilitation of the later mass deportation to a non-European Jewish reservation. By the non-European Jewish reservation, he is of course meaning death. When he refers to the Ostland, he means the Baltic states, not just Lithuania, but Latvia and Estonia as well. I suggest, but of course cannot prove as there are no documents to back this up, that Himmler read the report, agreed, and issued the appropriate orders to Stahlecker. Within days this led to systematic mass murder. On the 15th and 16th of August 1941, SS-Obersturmführer Joachim Hamann had 3,200 Jews shot, including many women and children. This was the first large mass killing where the victims were shot because they were Jewish, not because they were alleged communists. A few words about Karl Jäger might be useful. He was born in Switzerland in 1888 and his family moved to Germany in 1891. He participated in World War I. In the post-war period, he was an early Nazi, forming a local group in March 1923, that is to say, even before the Beer Hall Putsch. He owned a company which made musical instruments, but in the wake of the 1929, the company went bankrupt in 1931, making him unemployed. He joined the SS, and once the Nazis were granted power, he had a career in that organization. Jäger was appointed leader of Einsatzkommando 3 in early June 1941, which was deployed as part of Einsatzgruppe A in the Baltic states at the beginning of the war against the Soviet Union. On the 23rd of September 1941, he was appointed commander of the Security Police and SD, the Sicherheitsdienst, for the General Commissariat of Lithuania, headquartered in Kaunas. His office consisted of 141 people, including interpreters, who were supported by Lithuanian auxiliary police, made up of so-called white armbands, men who had previously been opposed to the Soviet occupation. The name White Armband was used as this was used to identify them during the revolt against Soviet rule in Kaunas, which occurred just after the German invasion. Due to his position in Kaunas, he wrote the Jäger Report of the 1st of December 1941, in which he listed in detail the number of people the Nazis murdered, not just Jews, but also mentally ill people, Roma and others, a total of 138,272. In the report he wrote, "I can state today that the goal of solving the Jewish population for Lithuania has been achieved by the Third Reich. There are no more Jews in Lithuania except for the working Jews and their families, which were in the ghettos in Šiauliai, Kaunas and Vilnius. I wanted to kill these Jewish workers, including their families, but this earned me a sharp challenge from the civil administration of the Reich Commissioner and the Wehrmacht, and triggered the ban. These Jews and their families must not be shot. The goal of making Lithuania free of Jews could only be achieved by setting up a mobile detachment of selected men under the leadership of SS-Obersturmführer Hamann, who fully embraced my goals and knew how to ensure cooperation with the Lithuanian partisans and the responsible civilian authorities." Thus Jäger claimed that it was only thanks to his ingenuity in appointing Joachim Hamann that the SS was able to get round the German military and civil authorities who were attempting to block his plan of murdering the Jewish population of Lithuania. Joachim Hamann was born in Kiel on the 18th of May 1913. Although he was born in Germany, his family was of Baltic German origin, which may be why he was considered to be an expert in this region. Hamann was a pharmacist by profession and temporarily unemployed during the Great Depression. On the 1st of February 1932, he joined the National Socialist German Workers' Party, membership number 958322. After the Nazis were granted power in 1933, he got a job with the police, and from there he was transferred to the Gestapo headquarters in Berlin. From there, he was transferred to Einsatzkommando 3, led by SS-Standartenführer Karl Jäger of Einsatzgruppe A, led by SS-Brigadeführer Walter Stahlecker. The Rollkommando Hamann was responsible for the murders of Jews in Lithuania and Latvia. On the orders of Walter Stahlecker, head of Einsatzgruppe A, and with the approval of Karl Jäger, head of Einsatzkommando 3, Hamann initially recruited 8 members from his Einsatzkommando. The unit had no fixed structure but consisted essentially of Hamann, his deputy Helmut Racker, and sometimes German Hauptscharführers Reinhold Post, Josef Stütz, Walter Salzmann, Heinz Mack, and Walter Planet. Depending on the needs of the day, 50 to 58 Lithuanians from the 3rd Company of the TDA could be involved in the killing. TDA in Lithuanian stands for National Labour Service. These men were former anti-communists. Indeed, the word partisan in the Lithuanian language, and as we can see in the Jäger Report, also in the German language, is often applied to them, and this leads to problems with linguistic misunderstandings. Following the Soviet occupation of Lithuania in 1940, many partisans took part in resistance activities, which resulted in an armed uprising in Kaunas in June 1941 that managed to capture large parts of the city, then the capital of Lithuania, from the Soviets. They identified themselves with a white armband in the days of the revolt against the Soviet Union, which continued to be worn during the Nazi occupation. That is why they can also be referred to as white armbands. The Nazis used these men to form what is often called the TDA, to act as an auxiliary police force, and then these auxiliary police units were used, amongst other things, for the murder of the Jewish population of Lithuania. It needs to be made clear that whereas some of them might have been anti-Soviet partisans, others may well have just jumped on the bandwagon following the Nazi occupation and seen the opportunity to enrich themselves by stealing the possessions of those that were to become victims of the Nazis. Furthermore, it wouldn't surprise me if many of these people had also been those that had cooperated earlier with the Soviets. The third company of the TDA was under the command of Lieutenants Anatolius Daigus, Juozas Barzda, and Bronius Norkus. I hope I pronounced their names correctly, as I cannot speak Lithuanian. The Jäger Report documents the commandos' mass shootings which were carried out at 54 locations throughout Lithuania and Latvia. From the 13th of July to the 22nd of August 1941, the commando also operated from Daugavpils, Latvia, murdering 9,102 people during this time. The means of murder was as follows. The Rollkommando would announce to the local Lithuanian police the day before one of their murder operations that a mass shooting of Jews would take place, and that the police and their volunteers were to prepare for it by digging mass graves, providing guards and escorts, and rounding up and undressing of the Jewish victims at the designated murder site. The murder location was chosen for its remoteness, but not so remote that transport would be a problem. On the morning of the murder, the Rollkommando usually would arrive from Kaunas with a few dozen members and carried out the mass killings. The firing squads were often given unlimited quantities of alcohol. After the mass murders were over, the local support staff had to shovel in the mass graves. The clothing and other property of the murdered victims was divided amongst the perpetrators. Karl Jäger, the head of Einsatzgruppe 3, sometimes participated in the murder operations as an eyewitness, although there were times when neither he nor Hamann didn't even bother to turn up. In this case, they passed the order to the TDA battalion. At the beginning of the occupation, the victims included Jewish men of military age as well as suspected or actual communists. The reason for the killing was political, that is to say, the victims were communists, either real or imagined. However, as from August 1941, the victims were murdered only for ethnic reasons, that is to say, because they were Jewish. Therefore, women and children were also murdered. In October 1941, with the vast majority of the Jews of Lithuania dead, Hamann was transferred to Berlin to the Reichssecurity Main Office, RSHA, where he was employed in Office 6, which was the Foreign Department. In 1942, he was involved in Operation Zeppelin, which was a plan to use Soviet prisoners of war who were prepared to work for the Germans as agents and commandos deep inside the Soviet Union. When Operation Zeppelin failed to produce the desired results, it was wound up and Hamann was moved to Department A3 in 1943, which was to combat right-wing opposition inside Germany. In this role, he participated in the investigation of those involved in the attempted coup of the 20th of July 1944. Whilst here, he was appointed aide to Ernst Kaltenbrunner, head of the Reichssecurity Main Office. At the end of the war, Hamann returned to his hometown of Kiel. Whether or not this was to seek shelter or as part of the Northern Rat Line is not clear. Realizing that his crimes would in turn eventually catch up with him, he committed suicide on the 13th of July, 1945. I hope you found this interesting. The Holocaust is my special area of knowledge and history, and you'll find many videos related to it on this channel. I upload every day at 2000 hours, that's my time, Central European time, as I live in Poland and Germany. On most days, I upload a shorts video of up to 3 minutes. Longer documentary type videos such as this one are uploaded on Tuesdays and Fridays, and sometimes on other days too. I also have a number of videos, currently over 800, which are available to those who have channel membership, which costs around €6 per month. However, I need to point out that the bulk of my videos are available to everyone free of charge. For the moment, from me, thanks for listening and bye for now.